Chair of the Council, Councillor Joe McPherson, the Chief Executive, Jonathan Stevenson, and the Reverend Glenn Mansfield.
Please be seated.
Members and members of the public, could I please ask everyone to note the fire safety instruction? That is, that there is no fire drills planned for this evening. In the event of the fire alarm sounding, please leave the building via the nearest exit and make your way to the assembly point located in the market car park adjacent to the Civic Suite building. Can everybody hear this okay? Thank you. I would like to remind you to please switch your phones off or turn them to silent. Please note that the meeting will be live streamed, where the proceedings are capable of being repeat viewing. Members of the public can record this meeting, providing this does not disturb the meeting and can be done from seats reserved for this purpose. Therefore, please raise your hand clearly if you intend to take photographs this evening. Nobody is indicating. Thank you. Please ensure your microphone is switched on when speaking and you speak clearly into the microphone. Once finished speaking, can you please ensure you switch off your microphone? If you are seated in the public area of the chamber, it is likely that your image will be captured by the recording cameras and result in your image being part of the broadcast. Finally, if members are, for any reason, not present for the whole debate on this item, you should consider and seek advice as necessary on whether it would be appropriate for you to vote on this item. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, please will you stand with me now for the Reverend Glenn Mansfield, if you are able to stand, please.
Well, good evening to you all. I'm going to read from Paul's letter to the Philippians, a couple of verses. Paul writes, the Apostle Paul, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus." So let's pray. Father, help us to recognise that you're in charge of all things, big and small, and help us not to be anxious about the future, but to trust in your sovereign will. And we thank you for the promise of peace when we ask for it. So we pray you'd give us your peace today. And the words of the Lord's Prayer, if you'd like to join in. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For the kingdom, the power and the glory are yours, now and forever. Amen.
Thank you very much. You're very welcome to stay for the debate this evening, if you'd like to, as ever. Members, please be seated. So we are going to item 1, apologies for absence. We have received apologies from Councillor Andy Cross, Councillor M. Carter and Councillor Gary Myers. Is there anyone else offering apologies? Thank you very much. No, I thought I saw him in the hallway. He's just there. Thank you, Councillor Sharp, but Councillor Reeves is very much present with us this evening. Yeah. Thank you. Item 2, any declarations of interest? Councillor Shaw, Councillor Steptoe, Councillor James Newport Councillor Hoy. Thank you very much. Councillor Shaw, would you like to speak and give your interest?
Thank you. I'd like to register other registrable interests as an ECC councillor. Emma has stated I'm not required to withdraw from this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So is that the same for all you Essex County councillors? Yes, agreed. Thank you. Moving to item 3, motions on notice. We have received one motion on notice. This is listed on page 3.1 and is set out in the requisition for this extraordinary council meeting from members of the council. Motion 1 from Councillor Belton. I would like to invite you now to put your motion, please.
Thank you, Chairman. As set out on page 3.1, the motion is in relation to Labour's English devolution white paper. The motion reads, this council commits to write to the Minister of State for Local Government and English Devolution to confirm that it does not support Labour's English devolution white paper issued on the 16th of December 2024. Furthermore, before any devolution or local government reform be imposed by central government upon the residents of Rochford District, then Rochford District Council requests a referendum be held to establish if there is public support, noting that Essex County Council made a decision on the 10th of January 2025 without seeking public support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Belton. I'm now going to invite Councillor John Mason to second the motion. And would you like to speak?
Yes, Chairman, I would like to speak now.
Exercise it now. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. Good evening, officers. I'd just like to say a very few words about why I've seconded this motion. This white paper was not subject to public consultation, and in particular with all affected relevant organisations, like almost every other white paper I have seen. The cancellation of elections by the government at the request of Essex County Council to provide so-called stability is something we as a country hear far too often around the world and call it undemocratic. It is not too early to debate the white paper by saying that we still do not have enough information. If that is true, why did Essex County Council make the decision? It should not have been made, full stop. LGR and devolution need to be separated. The only devolution I support brings decisions closer to residents, not further away. It is not the time to acquiesce, members. RDC can agree with the motion and still engage with other councils in discussion, but drawing a line now, in my view, may actually improve our position in discussions and will not be adverse to the eventual outcome. The wording of an RDC referendum of residents would come to full council later by separate motion, and it needs to be about, should we be forced to abolish RDC into a new unitary, suffer the cancellation of elections, object to no consultation at the publication of the white paper, and to call for separation of LGR from devolution. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor John Mason. So, members, what we're going to do now, we're going to open this motion to debate. So if you'd like to put your hands up, we will gradually progress through everybody. Everyone will get a chance to speak. So just be patient around that, please. So I've taken the first batch of names, so I'm going to invite Councillor Ian Ward to speak, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. It's a great honour to be doing this as the first speaker. Chairman, I would like to refer members to pages 61 and 65 in the White Paper, which refers in its entirety to the planning process. A universal system of strategic planning, a wonderful phrase, but who knows what it really means? Who will be responsible for implementing a concept which is as yet unformulated? Who will direct the spatial development strategy? For those of you who are still mystified, a universal system of strategic planning refers to a standardised framework that can be applied across different authorities, regardless of size, to develop and execute long-term strategies, typically encompassing steps like defining a vision, conducting a situational analysis, setting goals, developing action plans, and regularly reviewing progress. It's a structured approach with core components that can be adapted to fit specific needs. How do you apply a strict template to a mainly urban area whilst using the same template on a predominantly rural area? How compensatory will the core elements be to adapt to fit specific needs? We are being asked to accept a vague concept, at best on faith, because it will be all right in the end. Many of my residents have for years had no faith in the planning system. Why? When this will be the biggest change to the system for decades. They are being expected to accept this without proper debate and inspection. There are fundamental elements that go with this. A clear picture of the strategic authority's desired future state. We have yet to be given a clear vision. The strategic authority's purpose and reason for existence, that still has yet to be spelled out. We have internal analysis, such as the strategic authority's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. That's very much work in progress. You've got other things like examining economic trends for industry, housing market conditions and competitive economic factors. Needs work. Strategy development, goal setting, establishing specific, measurable, achievable, relevant and time-bound objectives. Established but challenging. Strategy formulation, choosing the best course of action to achieve goals based on the analysis yet to be established. Prioritising ranking strategies based on the importance and feasibility yet to be established. Action planning, breaking down strategies into actionable steps with assigned responsibilities and timelines yet to be established. Resource allocation, distributing necessary resources, people and budgets to execute the plan yet to be established. Performance monitoring, tracking progress towards goals and adjusting as needed, yet to be established. Now, depending on your point of view, the benefits of a universal strategic planning system provides a standardised approach for decision-making across the strategic authorities, ensuring all planning departments are working towards common goals and objectives, can be adapted to fit unique needs and circumstances with a clear understanding of the strategic direction throughout the strategic authority. Now, who actually leads strategic planning? A mayoral two-tier hierarchical system with strategic planning the mayor's responsibility in consultation with second-tier authorities, where officers and unelected advisors will be leading the strategic planning, with the position of local unitary councils reduced to a consultative body with residents nowhere. Residents are rightly furious that an Essex-wide referendum has not been conducted on this Labour white paper that's devoid of a tested democratic safeguard. Why so much haste? We are being asked to accept a plan which is littered with too many...
You have 30 seconds left.
Together with the removal of democratic choice as county elections have been cancelled. We are being asked to work to a political agenda rather than a practical agenda. This raises an ancient axiom of no taxation without representation. Therefore, based on the aforementioned, I cannot support this programme in its current format. Thank you, Chairman.
Just on time, thank you. Councillor Booth.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to speak this evening. I fully support this motion, since no politician, whether local or national, should be arrogant enough to know the minds of their electorate, when especially our residents, who are our electorate, have not been asked. The joy of democracy is its surprises. With power, there must be authority, and as far as it's my understanding, no authority has been given to us, as our residents' representatives, to make such a change. It is that I'm not against the best use of taxpayers' hard-earned money, which may come with larger authorities. I stress may, since my experience of life, both personally and professionally, is that larger the organisation or the institution, the more opportunity for waste and extravagance there may be. I encourage all of my colleagues here tonight to vote in favour of this opportunity that so many of us here in Rochford District residents believe is a basic democratic right for our residents. That is, to be asked, to be listened to, and to be consulted. So it is with keen interest I will seek to understand who is truly independent in mind and has the courage to support such fundamental rights and values. And to that end, Madam Chair, I give notice at this point of my intention to call for a recorded vote.
Thank you, Councillor Booth. Councillor Mill.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, my concern is that in an attempt to simplify the structure of local government, and as my Conservative colleague, Councillor Ward, has mentioned, the complications of all of that with planning and so on, it could be looked at that white paper as more of a knee-jerk reaction. And my concern is the development of local government structure based on the big city mayoral-led structures, which were originally introduced by the Conservatives for levelling up, would be a bad fit for rural England. And the current Essex County Council level approach has the ingredients of potentially providing, in my view, some of the maps I've seen on social media, a potential misfit for the county. So we need to have the districts involved and equally with those county councillors. The government's considering the best fit for devolution to harness effective growth, and the recognition of the model must encompass the realities of a thing called economic geography. Rural England has an economy, the urbans have an economy, and some urban areas are large industrial units. Some are on the Thames Gateway and so on. So there might be an issue of similar adjoining districts, rural districts, combining to make the building blocks of a devolved structure for local government, which we need to be in the debate about. And it's no good just saying, well, I'm going to throw the white paper in the bin, because the government is still making decisions and the government wants growth. Growth means they must recognise economic geography, but they must also recognise our voice in all of this. So at the moment, if we write a letter, what are we objecting to? We might get something for rural England out of this, which actually is more to our liking. We don't know. So at this point, I'm not going to support the motion, but a simple reason for that. Later on, of course, we will. I am in favour, however, of part of this, in that there should be a local referendum, I think, and we should have an equal voice at county level about all of this in Essex, and not have it the way it is at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mill. We will go for Councillor Wotton now, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and giving me the opportunity to talk about the government's white paper on, in a nutshell, local government reform, which for us in Essex means a small number of unitary authorities across Essex. We don't know the exact numbers yet. And devolution, which is all about additional powers and funding. I welcome the opportunity to have a public debate, which hitherto has been denied us, albeit decisions have already been made by the higher tier authority to proceed with an expression of interest, with government approval now given just last week to proceed. So the ball is now rolling. Speculative, but likely, Rochford, along with other councils including Southend, will become part of a much larger unitary council, all under a new strategic authority with an elected mayor. The immediate consequence of that is the loss of the Rochford identity and undoubtedly representation diluted. All councillors in this chamber were elected to represent their wards. The clue is in their name. We are called Rochford District Councillor. For me, that is a red line. I'm not against a form of LGR. Many versions exist. Under my leadership of this authority a few years ago, we recognised the challenges facing local government. In 2021, we led the way. We talked about Rochford District Council and Brentwood, but both having their own sovereignty to make decisions and to retain their own identity. So we come on to postponing elections. The decision has already been made there. We've seen political opportunities on the part of some of our political parties, not with any commitment to change what is being proposed, but for their own ego to gain greater representation. There is, however, a genuine case to let Essex people, including those in Rochford District, have their say specifically on the point of local government reform and devolution by means of a referendum. Essex County Council have gone in with an early expression of interest to central government. I don't doubt for one moment their sincerity and genuineness, and they have a much broader and better perspective than me, which I respect. The main reasons they tell us are in the best interest of residents and to be an influence and be involved with the process at the outset, rather than have the process done to us. Lots of questions about assets, funding, debts, housing numbers, planning. What is the impact on Rochford? The government tell us they have no money. We hear that virtually every day through the media. So where does the expectation of funding, they tell us, will come from? Any financial benefit of reform will not be eaten up from the stretch in the future delivery of services. There won't be a surplus. So I think that is a red herring to say that we're all going to be so much better off through central funding. Traditionally, this authority under various administrations is proud of having no borrowing, no interest costs, no repayments. We are solvent. So how will the people of Rochford feel better off? Not even vague answers. I may be sceptical, but I just can't see where the promised benefits relating to transport, infrastructure, etc. will come from. So we're going in blind. There is the cost to the taxpayer to transition. How much? We haven't been told. It is for these reasons that until we get some clarity on the foregoing points and better understanding on how the people of Rochford District will tangibly benefit from local government reform and devolution, other than being a mechanism for the Labour government to deliver its manifesto commitments, particularly on its ambitious housing targets and more, I shall be supporting the two elements of this motion. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wotton. I'd like to go to Councillor Stanley now, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've heard a great deal of speeches from the councillors, and yet we've got no answers. The white paper isn't giving us an answer at the moment. And until we get those answers, there is no outcome that we can put forward to our residents. I hear Councillor Ward with saying there's no outcome, nothing's been decided. I also hear it from Councillor Wotton, no outcome, nothing's been decided as to who's got the money, who's spending it and where it's going and so forth and so forth. Until we actually get those answers from the government, we can only supposition. That's all it is supposition. And I do believe that when we get the answers, we will have a debate on those answers and we will put our just desserts to the government. We will reply to them. And until then, I don't see that this motion can be carried forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stanley. Councillor Angelina Marriott, please.
Madam Chairman, I'm very concerned that our rural communities, village and small towns will not be adequately represented and understood. There is a danger that they will be left out to the bigger towns and cities in financial facilities and the decisions that affect the whole area. The White Paper has very little to say on beyond the vague reference to community committees, which may or may not mean town or parish councils. I have to say that I agree with Councillor Milne that this model is developed for very large metropolitan areas and would be a misfit for our rural district. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Marriott. Can I have the next wave of hands? People that would like, I've got you down. Thank you. So we're going to start with Councillor Squires-Coleman, please.
Thank you, Chair. I see the benefits and the drawbacks of council devolution. So at this stage, although I'm not completely set on the first section of this motion, I strongly believe residents should have a direct say on whether we join the first tranche of reorganisation. I have great sympathy with the concern that the cost of a referendum could be better spent elsewhere, but democracy has always come at a price. The cost of failing to engage the public could be far greater, and we need to build trust and secure public confidence. If residents must live with the consequences of this decision, they deserve a voice in shaping it, and I support the view of a public consultation on the timing of devolution in Essex. Therefore, on balance, I feel I must vote in favour of this motion.
Thank you very much. I'd like to invite Councillor O'Leary now to speak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The timing of this debate is premature, and at this stage it feels, in all honesty, like a little bit of a waste of time. This council should be debating the proposals for devolution and local government reorganisation in Essex when we actually know what the proposals are. What we have before us today is a blanket refusal, in my opinion, to engage with reality. And this could ultimately be to the detriment of our district and our residents. We don't yet know what proposals will come forward, and I want to see what they are and consult with our residents before I decide whether or not they benefit our district. So I will not be supporting the first part of the motion today. Regarding a referendum, realistically, we all know the government and Essex County Council are not going to give us one. This motion before us today is, unfortunately, it solves nothing. Are we proposing that Rochford District Council organises and funds its own referendum? Given the government are not going to take any notice of the result, it seems to me it would be a futile exercise, wasting residents' and officers' time and local council taxpayers' money. The best way to ensure our residents' voices could be heard on these issues would have been at the ballot box. Unfortunately, the Conservative-led Essex County Council voted to request a postponement of this year's elections. Some of those Conservatives who voted in favour of this are sitting here tonight as members of this council. I assume that they have been robustly challenged by their Conservative colleagues in this chamber who appear so concerned at this lack of democracy for our residents. Perhaps, given how concerned they They should follow the example last week of the 4 Mid-Suffolk District Conservative councillors who quit the party in protest at the Conservative county colleagues' questionable decision to support the cancellation of local elections. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor FD, please.
Thank you, Chairman. In 2028, this council could cease to exist. Between now and then, it seems increasingly likely that district councillors will lose their voice within the community. Our residents have made it clear in recent years that they value local assets such as the Mill Hall and the Freight House, page 94 in the White Paper. Talks about strengthening community assets and encouraging community ownership. However, it doesn't say how this will happen. If RDC joins up with other authorities, such as Southend and Castle Point, we will be in a position where we can be constantly outvoted on decisions. A larger council will have many more assets, and there is a real risk that those assets that are losing money, such as the Mill Hall, which continues to do, that these assets could be lost, likely to development. What will be done to ensure this doesn't happen? And the same goes for our open spaces. Despite ongoing car parking increases by the current administration, Rochford is still lower by comparison to some neighbouring authorities. Will we see a new council have the ability to increase charges dramatically? There is no mention in the White Paper of car parking, despite this being an important factor for our residents and businesses. With the White Paper, there are only 3 mentions of parish councils throughout the entire 118 pages, despite the fact that they will be the only source of real local representation. This is mentioned of better relationships between the councils and the parishes, but there is absolutely no explanation of how and if parishes are to be given more authority, which is at this stage is an assumption. There is no clarity in the paper what resources will the government provide to enable them to take on more responsibilities. Devolution, a strategic mayor, what does this mean for housing in Rochford? Neither I or my residents want or need housing allocations from neighbouring councils dumped in Rochford's green belt. Some councillors have brought up the point that this is too early. I make the point that negotiations have already started, and this is Rochford's district voice, which should be heard by the negotiators. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much too. Councillor Vilma Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As probably comes to, are you all right there, Richard? Oh, sorry. As probably comes to no surprise to anyone, I absolutely fully support this motion. The White Paper contents issued, as we all know, on the 16th of December last year, constantly refers to combining services, value for money, etc. I'm quite sure we've all read this paper. I've just always been very proud that we at Rochford District Council are already carrying out, looking for combining services, value for money. We have worked with our residents to shape our services. We have surveys to ask their views. This will not continue anymore. How democratic is that? Not. With devolution, we have decision making first, and interestingly, any consultation with the public afterwards. In my view, the public consultation mentioned in the White Paper is no more than box ticking. Our residents deserve better than this. This is why I support in asking the leader of this council to commit to write to the Minister of State to confirm that this council does not support Labour's English devolution White Paper. From watching YouTube live, the leader of this council did not vote positively at that meeting. It is only correct that all of our residents are given the opportunity via a referendum to establish our residents' views on whether there is indeed public support for this imposed devolution or LGR. This is their future that we are debating now, and to not support this is basically saying, in my view, we don't believe in democracy. Interestingly, we had to ask our residents to vote on us being here in our positions. So why is it okay all of a sudden to turn around and say, It's okay, residents, we're doing this without you. We'll go first and ask second. As said, we are supposed to live in a democracy. Let us, as Rochford District Council, do the right thing. To do nothing at this early stage is shameful in my view. Rochford District Residents' Party has always referred to the residents. It's always been residents first, and I don't see this example, this incident that we're here now discussing any different. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Macpherson, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I've listened closely to the debate. The motion's in two parts. I listened to Councillor Ward, who started off the debate, who ended his contribution that he could not vote for it in its current format. That was your wording, I believe, Councillor Ward. And I am of a kin in the fact that I can't vote for this without further information. But the start of that motion, I would urge that there is something added to that motion, an amendment. But first of all, I will just speak on this. I cannot support the government's white paper on devolution in its current format, as I do not understand fully the format, the full impact that it will have on the Rochford place, the place that I am elected to represent. The ethos of devolution I can support. However, in the Prime Minister's foreword, he says, too many decisions affecting too many people are made by too few. As we know, the ethos of devolution in handing back power to local people. However, the white paper clearly states the new authorities will have a mayor who will have unprecedented powers. So we have the Prime Minister saying on one side that we have too many decisions affecting too many people made by too few, yet an area will have one mayor making decisions for many. There's so much to look into this white paper in more detail that we haven't yet been given. Even on the Local Government Association website, it is still saying there needs to be more clarity around the 500,000 people that we need to have for each area. How will that affect us, and how can that affect the conversations that we're going to have with other local authorities? I have listened to Councillor O'Leary saying it's right that we need to know the benefits for our residents. How can we vote on it without knowing those benefits? Some members in here will believe that they do know those benefits. Councillor Wotton, you say at County, they have been told of the benefits. We have two county councillors here who voted for this. Perhaps they would share with us, because I would greatly appreciate that, because that could win my mind round to voting against this motion. Now, the second part of the motion, if I can just cover that off. Deputy Prime Minister and Secretary of State of Housing, Local Communities, Local Government, says in her foreword, all written down on the government website, this is ambitious, but it isn't new. This programme of reform continues the work of the 1997 governments, on which we saw the foundation of the Mayor of London, the devolved parliaments and assemblies of Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. All this is correct, Mrs Rayner. But what you omit to mention is that in September 1997, referendums were held in Scotland and Wales on devolution. The Scottish Parliament and National Assembly for Wales were formed. In Northern Ireland, devolution was key to the Belfast Good Friday Agreement. Again, a referendum was held. And the referendum asking for the public on their opinion of the Greater London Authority took place in May 1998. There was no referendum offered to the people of Essex or the people of Rochford. This was taken out of our control by Essex County Council. However, my understanding also is, unless somebody wants to point out where they've seen it different, the Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government is refusing to hold any referendums. I don't want to set our residents up for failure or misguided expectations by us trying to ask for a referendum that isn't going to be given. So I can't support this motion in its entirety because I do not support that second part. I'm sorry, members. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to join the debate? Unfortunately, Councillor Wootton, you've already spoken.
Please.
Yep.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And look, I was named, and I just want to make it quite clear. I don't have any specific issue with Councillor Macpherson, but I want to make quite clear that I'm not misunderstood. In my wording, I'm pretty sure I said, and the tape can be replayed, referring to Essex County councillors, I don't doubt their sincerity and genuineness, and they may have much better perspective than me may have. If I just add that in. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Wootton. Councillor Stuart Wilson, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be brief. I don't agree with the way that Essex County Council and the government have gone about this, but I am open-minded about devolution, and I'm determined to make it work for our residents. I believe that we should be positive, and rather than focus on the negatives, which people have been talking about all evening, we should be positive and grab any opportunities for our residents. I'd like to say this is a journey that we're on. We don't know all the answers. No one will know all the answers at the moment, but they will evolve over time. And we, the RDC administration, cannot simply sit back and say, we're not going to engage. We don't like this. That would be a dereliction of our duty to our residents and our responsibility to our residents. So we must deal with the situation as it is now and not as we would wish it to be. Do we really think that the announcement or an announcement made by the Deputy Prime Minister in Parliament will be overturned by a letter from Rochford District Council? In my view, this motion is simply an empty gesture that will have no practical effect. And one final point, devolution was originally a Conservative policy and has been taken forward by Labour. The Conservative Party locally seems to be operating a Schrodinger's local government reform position by simultaneously supporting and opposing in Essex. So for that reason, I won't be supporting the motion. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Lisa Newport, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This motion's intention is to reject the white paper and call for a referendum. Personally, I am against the cancellation of county elections, as this would have given an indication of what our residents want and, in turn, a direction of travel. As this is not the case, it does feel as if we are in a difficult situation. However, I am trying to look at the bigger picture and feel that if we try to delay this process, we will ultimately be left with the decision made by the Labour government and Essex County Council and have no say at all. Therefore, I do not support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hoy, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I wasn't going to speak, but I've changed my mind, which I'm sure members will find unfortunate. I've listened to many of the comments. I've read the motion. I will not be supporting the motion, and I'll just lay out a few of the reasons for that. There's a lot of talk about what residents want. I've spoken to a number of residents. I've posted about what residents want on Facebook. I've had emails, and I've really had no resident come to me and say that they're not in favour of devolution or they're not in favour of LGR, local government reform. The thing they've come to me is said that they really object to the cancellation of the county elections in 2025. That's what they object to. That's what I object to. And it was being mentioned there's county members here. I'm one of the 4 county members in this room at the moment. I'm one of only 2 county members who voted against the proposal to cancel the elections. I'm one of the 2 county members present who voted against moving forward with devolution and local government reform. I don't agree that this is proper devolution. Devolution to me is to bring the power down as close as possible to the people. This leaves it with a mayor in charge of £1 billion that we've been told by Councillor Bentley at Essex, covering 1.8 million people. That's not my view of devolution. Local government reform is different. And I just want to spend a little bit of time on local government reform. I've spoken to some of the leaders of the unitary authorities that exist in Essex at the moment. I've spoken to officers from other areas, leaders of councils from other areas. And one of the things that strikes me is that the smaller unitaries can be very effective. It would appear, speaking to council leaders, that the smaller unitaries have very good results in adult social care. They have very good results in childcare. It's the larger unitaries which fail in these areas. So perhaps this might be a good thing for us. I'm not saying we would merge with Southend, but I understand that Southend have the best roads in Essex. So would that be a bad thing if our roads improved? It's one of the biggest complaints I get as an Essex County Councillor. And then we move on to that specific point. I'm dealing with some things as an Essex County Councillor and other things as a district councillor. A lot of residents do get confused about that. And if we are a unitary, we will be dealing with both. So each councillor would then be dealing with everything. So I don't agree that this is necessarily a bad thing at all. I believe the way it's being handled is very poor, but I don't believe this would let me vote for the motion. I think we really need to be ambitious for our residents, and that we should be not devoting our energy to opposing this. We should be devoting our energy to get the best results for our residents in devolution and local government reorganisation. If we spend time opposing it and not discussing this, putting forward our ideas and what we believe residents want, which doesn't have to be by a referendum. We talk to residents all the time. And that's where we can get what we want to put to what local government reform will become. And unless we are in that point negotiating, we will fail our residents. So although I've gone slightly off track, which I apologise for, that's the reason I don't want to support it. I just feel we'll be devoting time for the wrong ambition. We should be ambitious for what we can do for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gooding, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too have listened to the comments stated this evening, and initially I could see some validity in the motion, and it's imperative that we get the answers for the residents. However, to balance this, we have to establish if residents' public money is being spent wisely, pursuing this idea. Whether this is value for us, we need to ascertain that we have a reasonable chance of a positive outcome, given the time restrictions we already face. I don't agree with what I consider will be throwing public money at lost causes. Therefore, I will not be able to support this motion.
Thank you. And Councillor James Newport, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I've listened to the debate tonight, and listening to it, I won't be supporting this motion as presented. To simply reject the Labour government's devolution white paper is a failure to acknowledge the problems that exist with local government. The position in which the government has placed us is, of course, a difficult one, particularly the timescales. And I do not agree with those timescales, but we are where we are. We must deal with the challenge, and it will be challenging. But I will take up this challenge with selflessness and objectivity. For years, we have challenged Essex County Council's performance on its responsibilities, such as highways, send and flooding, to name a few. Strategic planning has been another abject failure, with little or no investment in our infrastructure. This devolution paper sets out to allow us to explore how we might do things differently. The Labour government at least has been bold enough to try and address the issues. When the Conservative government led the country, they constantly shied away from tackling those difficult issues. I am open-minded to explore the possibilities and want to try and get the best for our residents by influencing the future of devolution and local government reform. I am not prepared to turn my back on it and pretend it's not happening. it is happening. As I've publicly stated, I will base my views on evidence that is used to build future proposals and not dismiss this opportunity to make our residents' lives better. In respect to the referendum, I'm surprised by the Conservative group of bringing this forward. On the 31st of January 2024, we were notified by email of a potential for devolution deal for Essex. I did not once hear of a murmur for a referendum. What's changed? Just the colour of the government. More recently, at the Essex County Council meeting, not one of the Conservative district councillors attended to speak against these proposals that the Conservative Essex County councillors all voted for. Why? Where were they? I'm afraid the ship has sailed, and it's time to grasp the nettle and deal with the difficult choices that are ahead of us. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Eaves, please.
Thank you, Chair. I apologise for being late in the debate, but I've listened to what's been said and I feel that I should actually make some comments. I wasn't going to speak, but there's a rather strange thing happening in the debate. The Conservative Party voted for devolution and local government reform at county, but are against it here. Our Liberal, Democrat and Green representatives at county voted against, but now give the impression to the public by suggesting that they are against the motion. So it does make me wonder if politics are at play rather than residents' best interest. I do support this motion, not for any other reason than that I believe our residents shouldn't be ignored in a democratic process. To date, no one can say that the process has been adopted is even vaguely democratic. Our residents have been completely ignored. Many members in the administration are suggesting this debate is too early. Well, if not now, when? Will we be told later down the line that it's too late? It's important that this council makes the central government aware that this council is concerned about the direction of travel. Will it change anything in the process? Probably not. Should we voice our concerns? Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eaves. Anybody else would like to join the debate, please, that hasn't spoken already? Councillor Jim Cripps.
Thank you, Chair. This isn't a new thing. I've been watching it on the LGA monthly magazine now for a year or more. And the reason I took interest in looking at it, I asked myself the question, am I happy with what we've got as a system now? And I'm not happy with it. I'm very frustrated that we've got 12 second-tier councils all vying for something from a half-empty pot from one county council. I get frustrated day in, day out by potholes, bad pavements, not cutting the grass, all the other things that are not getting done. So that is why I took an interest in reading the LGA every month on that. I noticed that the leader of Essex County Council was very verbal in those magazines, but other people made points in it as well, from all parties. And I read them all, Independent, Conservative, Green, and so on. I'm no legal beagle, but I believe, and I'm no doubt someone will correct me if I'm wrong, that the three senior councils in Essex, it is in their bailiwick to make a decision that they made. So that, to me, if I'm right, is already done, the move towards devolution. I don't like the way it's been done in terms of top-down mandate and so on. But if that's the way it's set up, and they do, it is in their bailiwick to make that decision, I don't see what we can do about it apart from a gesture. It won't change anything. What I feel really, really strongly about, though, is the local government reorganisation. As has eloquently been said by a number of councils here tonight, what do we know about it? Not a lot, very little. It needs definition. Councillor Ward alone in an eloquent speech, chose one particular aspect of it and continually illustrated how concerned he was with aspects of it that weren't explained. I feel the same about that. As you all know, I've been given a mandate on housing targets. I didn't have any say in that. So I don't like the aspect of the way that the County Council have performed in this, but their end of it, the devolution, I don't think there's anything we can do about. The local government reorganisation, I think there's a lot we can do about. In the latest briefing we had, there's already consultations planned. And I would think, and I believe, it will be better if we as a council understood what we've got versus what we could have, is when you make the decision. And that's when you tell the public why you believe what you believe at that point. So I'm torn on this. I think the first item here is pointless because I believe it's in their bailiwick to make that decision on devolution. And the second one, in its current form, isn't good enough. We need to wait in the next few weeks when CEOs, council leaders, take part in joint meetings with all the other council leaders and CEOs and start to come up with the shape that we can understand. I mean, it's always going to be too complicated to put on an A4 sheet and explain the detail to the public. So we've got to get past that, and then councillors have got to give the public a layman's reason why we're supporting it or we're not supporting it. So for me, we need to wait a little bit, get the information, and then make a decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cripps. If nobody else would like to join the debate, I'm going to invite Councillor Belton to wind up for us, please. Is that okay? Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I've purposely reserved my right to speak until the end because I wanted to hear the debate. So thank you, members, for a robust debate. I'd like to make a few points based on what I've heard before I move to the vote, if that's okay. Devolution and local government reform as a concept is absolutely worth exploring. I don't think I've heard many people say that it isn't within this chamber. I think we can all agree there are efficiencies to be made against local government. Again, that seems to be a repetitive theme around the chamber. The issue, and the reason the motion have come forward, is the white paper. That is what we are debating, that version of devolution and local government reform, and more importantly, the haste at which it is being pushed through. There's been some interesting things. Councillor Hoy started his speech by saying his residents want it. I'm yet to find many that do. But yet he voted against it at County Council. That raises some concerns for me as a concept. There's been a lot of talk about Essex County Council pushing this through. It wouldn't have got anywhere without Southend and Thurrock. It was all three of them that pushed this through. So just for a bit of clarity there. Now, for me, Labour's white paper is a Trojan horse to deliver their manifesto of 1.5 million homes this Parliament. That is my biggest concern, and that is the concern that has come forward from residents. By creating much larger authorities, we run the risk of allowing neighbour authorities to potentially use our land for their homes. The map speaks for itself. We are twice the size geographically in land, but not in population. And the concern is that we will have disproportionate representation and have a very difficult time protecting our green, or as Labour would now call it, grey belt.
I think
Can
they
I
actually
ask,
settled. They
have
did
just
settle
one
down.
meeting, please?
They
Thank you.
did settle down, and I didn't want to actually interrupt Councillor Belton during a speech. But please carry on.
Thanks very much. Within the white paper, the word investment shows up 89 times, but it isn't clear where that investment is coming from or what it is going to. Labour's typical model is pushing money to deprived areas. Our district doesn't fall into that category in the most part, so how can we ensure we would get the fair share of any apparent investment that would come forward? That's another concern for me. We have issues, well, the referendum in itself. Councillor John Mason made a point at the beginning that if we were to call for a referendum, that would come as a separate motion with more detail at a later time. People have said about money being wasted. it's almost certain that the 2026 district elections are going to be cancelled. Would we not be able to have a referendum at that point with the money saved from a district election? There is no waste there, but residents feel that they get their say. Councillor Adrian Eves made a perfect point. Politics are coming into this, but I'm standing up as a Rochford district resident concerned with Rochford district resident issues, and there are many of them, planning being the number one that I've heard. To me, to not support this motion sends a message to this Labour government that you are in support of the white paper as it's currently presented, and that you don't believe residents deserve a vote on the topic. The MP for Rochford and Southend has stated Labour have got a mandate for this because it was in their manifesto, but not in Rochford. Rochford did not vote for Labour in its entirety, and they did not vote for devolution or local government reform. So I think it's therefore important that we send a message to the government that we do not support the white paper. I hear what Councillor Cripps has said, that this is going to be done to us. This is already happening. The ball is already rolling. But since when does that mean we don't stand up for our residents to give them a voice? I would love for the leader and the deputy leader to show a little bit of respect and keep it down while I'm finishing up. Thank you. So ultimately, I've heard people saying that they're not in favour, and I've heard the reasons why. But I think largely they are wrong. Now is the right time. It's the right time to speak up for our residents, to say that we are not in favour of its current form. We are open to conversation and we are going to listen to what is happening around us, but that this is not something that our residents have asked for. So I hope that some of you will reconsider and support for this motion to give our residents the voice that they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So members, we're going to do a recorded vote as requested by Councillor Booth, and Paul Birkinshaw is going to call all your names out in progress. I'll hand over to you now to say. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Okay, we need to get a vote from 8 members. If you could stand up if you want the recorded vote, please. That's lovely. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Chair. Members will be familiar with the procedure in which I'll call out members' names individually and ask you to indicate whether you are for the motion, against the motion, or wish to abstain. Please can you speak clearly into your microphone when indicating your vote. I will call the Chair and Vice Chair first, and then I will call the rest of the members in alphabetical order. Councillor Page.
Against.
Councillor McPherson.
I have to abstain. Thank you.
Councillor Belton.
For.
Councillor Booth.
For.
Councillor Brewer.
Against.
Councillor Capon. Councillor Constable. Councillor Cripps. Councillor Efty.
For.
Councillor Eves.
For.
Councillor Gooding.
Against.
Councillor Hoy.
Against.
Councillor Knight.
Against.
Councillor Lambourne.
Against. Against.
Councillor Linden.
Against.
Councillor Marriott.
For.
Councillor E. Mason. Councillor J. Mason. Councillor Milne.
Against.
Councillor J. Newport. Councillor L. Newport. Councillor O'Leary. Councillor Sharp.
Against.
Councillor P. Shaw. Councillor L. Shaw. Councillor Squires Coleman.
For.
Councillor Stanley.
Against.
Councillor Steptoe. Councillor Sutton. Councillor Ward. Councillor Webb.
For.
Councillor Williams. We didn't have apologies, did we? Councillor S. Wilson. Councillor I. Wilson.
For.
Councillor V. Wilson.
For.
Councillor Wotton.
For.
So, members, we have 16 for, 15 against, 4 abstentions, so that motion is carried. Members, this concludes our business for this evening, and I am closing